This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 on this fast-moving Friday show. Ready to roll. We'll check in with West Fargo's Adam Palczewski will join us coming up in about a half hour after the Packers' big win over Davies. We'll do that before we say goodbye. But the big story today off the top of the show was the thriller in St. Paul last night, put on by the top-ranked Spud hockey team, trailing by 2 goals. They rattle off 5 unanswered to knock off Lakeville South 7-4 and move on to the state semifinals, playing later tonight against Edina. It's our pleasure to welcome back to our show Jon Ammerman, head coach of the Spuds. After a thriller last night, you lose a few years off your life after how the game started last night.
Yeah, obviously not the way we drew it up, but really proud of the kids and how resilient they were. You know, you get to that big stage, and for this group of kids, sometimes it's a lifetime in waiting. A lot of them, it's 7, 8, 9 months where you're waiting for that opportunity, and then for it to start the way it did, and for our guys to really dig their heels in. Pretty impressive stuff. So, Lakeville South, credit them and what they did to start the game. They gave us fits, but the second half of the game, we really liked us getting to what we do well, and it paid dividends for sure.
All right, for non-hockey fans that may have been watching maybe their first game or second game last night, you got to give us as best interpretation as you can on one goal that was called for you and then one that was taken off the board for Lakeville South. So for the goal that was counted for you guys, where the Lakeville South goalie has his stick and glove come off, what's the interpretation on that, and why was the goal allowed to stand from what you were told?
Sure. Well, a little history behind it, and I don't know if people have read around, but Moorhead has not fared well in the state tournament with replays.
No.
But before the game, they talked about a new I don't know if rule, but continuation rule is what they called it, and inadvertent whistle, or sometimes the puck might be trickling through and the referee loses sight of the puck.
Yep.
That goal is going to count. Well, I thought maybe that's what would have came into play there, because it was an obvious goal. But actually what we were told after the game, because in the game we weren't given an explanation. We were told before that all reviews were upstairs. The referees on the ice, had a part in it, but they were not the ones that made the call,
Okay.
just with all the technology in the building. So the referee signaled goal and didn't notice that the blocker had come off. We were told after that that's a non-reviewable play. So the fact that he signaled goal, that can't be overturned.
Okay.
Based on now on the bench, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I thought, and we thought, the coaching staff, that was going to be overturned. We were actually already talking to our kids about how we're going to handle this, talking through it, because those 30 to 45 seconds seem like hours. But then we have that good fortune of that standing, and obviously it was a goal. And even if he did have the blocker, there wasn't really that great of a chance that he was going to make the save. And then you flip it around a couple of minutes later, where their forward gets an angle and just barely clips Charlie. And there was contact. There's no question on that. And then they score. For those two things to go our way, there was obviously a lot more than just a bounce or two. We had a little bit of luck, and not going to discredit what our kids did, because they earned the win. But we definitely fared well in both those reviews.
So, John, for the second one, there cannot be any contact with the goaltender, correct? Is that the letter of the law?
Correct. I mean, it's a gray area, right? And that's sometimes what makes sports fun. But within the crease, that's a protected area, and it's one thing if our defenseman or a Moorhead player would have pushed that player into our goaltender, but that wasn't the case. He had a clear angle to the net. He clipped our goaltender. And then it's a dead play. If he wouldn't have made contact, it's probably a different result, at least for that goal specifically. But Yeah, the third period was wild, and we're glad it ended the way it did.
The goal that made it 4-3, Mason's goal there, did that feel like you got a spark out of that, or where did you sense on the bench that things turned in your direction?
Yeah, I mean that definitely had to be. You get through the first, and if anybody watched or followed the game, the start was not great for Moorhead. They came out just guns ablaze, and they were flying up and down the ice, and we were very obviously nervous. We took a bit to settle into what we do well, and we came back to get within one and at the end of the first, and that was a huge goal to just kind of calm it a little bit, with the way that some of our forwards and how dynamic they are. You thought, okay, this is all right. If that's our worst, we're still within striking distance. It didn't really get away from us. And then, you resettle, you kind of reset in the locker room, and then they score in the first 10 seconds of the second. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I will, been around these kids. A year ago, there were some kids that would have said, well, it's over,
Mm.
but the maturity that they've or the process of where they've matured in the last year, um, it showed, and our leadership showed. It wasn't really any adjustment that the coaching staff made. We might like to think that it was something we did, but that isn't the case. These kids, the things that they were doing, the things that they were saying on the bench were right on. The way that they were picking each other up was exactly what you want. The way that they would respond, um, you kind of had that feeling that, okay, we're not out of this, and you just had to remind them there's a lot of game left, and with how explosive we can be, there's a chance. And to get to the third period tied, Mason's goal starts that,
Yep.
and then a shift or two later, we score another one to tie it up. Like then it was like, okay, now we're back. It's square. And for this team to have one period to win a game, you like your chances.
I wish I would have cut the highlight of this. There was a save that Charlie Stensham had when I want to, maybe it was right after the 4-2 goal that they go up. He
Right.
made a great blockers, or maybe with his pad save. If they score there, then maybe it's a complete. I mean, it's 5-2 at that point. That's going to get lost in what played out. But man, that was a monster save that he had.
Well, and Charlie's one of those kids that dug his heels in.
Yeah.
Like the start was tough, and as a goaltender, it's a different animal where the lights are bright on you, and it's really easy to key in on that guy being the savior or the one that is to blame. And for Charlie to make that save, that's maybe the momentum changer, right? Everybody's going to point to Mason's goal, but the way the second started, and then for Charlie to come across there on a point blank, you even I think it was at the end of the first, they hit a pipe on a wide open net. At that point it could have been 4-1. Just all those little things, they add up and they kind of get lost in the shuffle of a Mason Kraft having 4 goals, or of some of the outstanding plays that Brandon Mickelson made with the puck. It There was just a lot of things that went our way in the end, and not that you do things the right way and you hope things eventually tilt your way, but there's been a few bounces that haven't gone our way lately, and over the last couple of years in St. Paul, and it was fun to finally have a few hours.
Well, let's talk about what Mason did last night. I mean, 4 goals at the state hockey tournament is a big deal, and obviously you needed every one of them. But I know he's been stellar for you for the better part of the last couple of years. But what really stood out to you about his performance last night?
Well, I think one thing that's really came along in the second half of the year, even into the summer, but his leadership is, and his attitude has definitely shifted. He has been an outstanding teammate, and he's being rewarded for it, right? He's obviously an extremely dynamic player. He's put in a ton of work off the ice, and he has a mind for the game, but he's also he's done a really good job of being positive, of picking up some of the younger guys. Um, what he's done last night, he broke the single season scoring record for Moorhead. He just passed Matt Cullen,
Man.
which obviously is a significant thing. And even Matt would admit that the schedule is a little bit different now than what it was in the past. So what Mason has done, in the last 5 games, he has 20 points. You know, what he's done has just been incredible, and he's a kid that's worked extremely hard for it, and you're really impressed with the way he's done it, especially the last 12 months.
That's another record you kind of shake your head at there, John. Matt, that one is kind of a storied one that Mason now sits number one. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and he still has a few games in
Yeah.
hand, right? I would say that Mason is hoping to add a little bit and cushion his lead, but and he'll admit, he's also benefiting from some extremely dynamic guys around him too, right? So we up front, we got a really good thing going. Shifting to tonight, Edina, like their structure and just the fact that they've been there before, they're the returning champions. A lot of those kids were on that team last year. They know what it takes to get it done. And I got a feeling they got 19 circled. And I also have a feeling that Mason's up to the task for sure.
Don't roll your eyes to the back of your head when I ask you, it's hard to beat the same team 3 times in a year. You've already beat them twice, but that seems probably a lifetime ago. How different are they of a team that you saw last night as opposed to what you saw, right after Christmas?
Oh, we'll find out. I think they might think the same, right? It was half a season ago.
Yeah.
You think they're just a better version of themselves, right? You have those sophomores or even those freshmen that now have 10 more varsity games, 15 more varsity games under their belt. Mason West continues to impress, right? Obviously, we played him early and he probably was still in football mode, where now he's got a full season under his belt. They got a couple of guys up front that are extremely dynamic, Freddie Schneider and a few others that can get up and down the ice. So, they're gonna be a tough out. There's no question about that. They have a goaltender that they got back. He was injured for the better part of the season that they feel is their number one. So we're gonna be challenged all over the ice. They beat a very good Rogers team last night, right? So our hands are going to be full, but there is that familiarity too. Like I want to emphasize that because Lakeville South, we had video but we didn't really know what to expect outside of what you could see on tape. Our guys know these guys. They've seen these guys. And I think that helps our cause as well.
Now, you have the late game tonight. We were joking off air here about you got some time, but it could be 8:30. It could be late. Just how do you mentally prepare? You're not really sure when you're going to get on the ice tonight.
Yeah, and we've dealt with that before. We have that experience because the guys, they're excited to get going, right? And sometimes you expend a lot of energy in waiting. Just for fact of the matter, because it's an exciting time. So throughout the day today, it's just laying low, getting up and moving around, but trying to take your time and keep them busy, to not keep their mind off it, but to just stretch out the day. So when it is time to go, they have their full set of energy. And like I mentioned before, it's a relatively mature group for a group of teenagers. So we'll lean on that a little bit. They're excited to go, and it's a 3-day sprint at this point, and we're on day 2 of it, and there's still some energy left in the tank.
I got to ask, I mentioned this earlier. You've been down there as a player and now as a coach, obviously. I contend Friday, especially Friday night, is the biggest day of the tournament. When you have, especially the AA with the 4 semifinalists, the crowd is obviously going to be juiced. What is it about tonight that makes it so special, knowing full well what's at stake for a chance to play for a championship tomorrow night?
Well, I would agree with you. Obviously, the championship day is a whole different animal, but right now there's still 4 teams that are alive on both the single A and AA. So you have 8 communities that are still feeling that they have a chance at it. This is really the day when everybody gets there. We have been so fortunate with our support. But to be frank, there's a lot of people that wait to see what happens Thursday to come down, right?
That's
So
exactly right.
tonight's the day where everybody gets down there and gets settled in. To have the 8:30 game, people are going to have a whole day to get prepped for it. Down at the restaurants and local establishments, and yeah, this is where the alumni come out of the woodwork, right? Like our tickets were released this morning at 8 a.m. and from what I understand, there are very few left, and I don't think we're releasing any back to the general public. So um, there's a different kind of buzz, and like I said, now there's 4 teams left and 4 communities that are juiced up.
I know you're busy with a lot of things, but the Spud Hockey logo made a viral sensation on several on Twitter last night for people that don't follow the sport of the skating potato. Is there can we get that on the jersey tonight? We know the jersey selection. What do we got rocking tonight?
From what I understand, we're wearing our whites again. Our youth hockey does use that logo. It is
pretty good.
It is on the crest. It's a good thing that every year people get to rediscover the Spud logo. I think people around Minnesota are fully aware of what it looks like and what it is, but this is the time of year where some people from around the country get introduced to it, and we hope they get to see it for 2 more nights.
It's great to see you, bud. Thanks so much for doing this on a game day. Congrats on the win, and good luck tonight, okay?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Jon
Have a good
Ammerman, Moorhead High hockey coach, joining us from St. Paul. I'm not sure if there's a trip to Casetas they got a whole day. I don't know. You want to get weighed down with pasta or anything like that. I would make certainly 2 to 3 trips. Been known to do that in the past when I've gone down to cover the state hockey tournament. That's coming up as the late game in St. Paul tonight. So you've got the first game with Stillwater and St. Thomas that'll start about 6:15, and then Spuds and Edina coming up afterwards at about 8:30, I'd imagine. And this is literally, Moorhead is a dynamite team. They're not the Cinderella story because they're the number 1 seed. But for this exact game, they are, because they're playing the ultimate cake eater school. There is no doubt. Edina has totally bought into it. They know everybody hates them. They love this moment because everybody and their brother is going to be cheering for Moorhead tonight. Everybody will be. Edina thrives on that. That's what scares the heck out of me about this particular game. And yes, I know they've played twice before, and the Spuds won both of them. And you heard John say, that probably doesn't mean much heading into tonight. But you get this one. That's our guy, Brad Anderson, is exactly right. 99.9% is exactly right of who's cheering. The 0.1 is just people from Edina. They'll be cheering the Hornets on for that one. It's going to be a fabulous environment for a hockey game. And even if you don't like the sport or watch the sport, I would encourage you to find some time tonight to tune in, because that atmosphere at the X is going to be electric for these semifinal games and a chance to play for a state title. And Moorhead is a big city. I've lived there long enough and been a part of this area long enough. And now, obviously, my wife teaches there, full disclosure. My son is a Spud. He is actually, I can't believe this. First thing he did when he woke up this morning was ask my wife if the Spuds won last night, which is hilarious. That it is a big community, but it still tends to be small in its support of sports. I saw it with the football team this past year. Hockey has its own special relationship with the city and what they've done. This team has taken on another breadth to it, simply with the lineage they have, that Matt's sons play there. Ryan Kraft's son plays on the team. So there's a lineage there to the past of what those teams did. And for these guys that have come up through youth hockey and been really, really good. I mean, I've been hearing about them for the better part of 4 or 5 years, much like I've been hearing about the football guys coming through for the last 5 years, that look out. When they get there, they could be awfully darn good. And that's not to dispute, by the way, what Matt Ellingson's basketball team is doing. Should give full credit to the Spud boys, because they're playing in the section semis tomorrow at home with a chance to go back to the state tournament. It's a heck of a run here for Moorhead sports over the last little stretch. We'll see. It is. It's literally the mighty empire, like Darth Vader in Star Wars against the rebellion. That's what you got tonight. Even though Moorhead's the 1 seed, they are certainly the Cinderella story tonight. if they can get past Edina to make it to the championship game. We'll take a break. We come back. We caught up on a couple other emails. Mentioned Adam Palczewski will join us from West Fargo coming up in about 15 minutes as well. Back on Hot Mic right after this.